Hello everyone, welcome back to another contrast paint video. This one is probably going to be a bit of a quick one because there's really only one main colour that's going to be used on most of the model, but it is a chance to use a new contrast paint to see how it does on a miniature. We're using a Batman miniature game model. This is the Red Death. This is one of the Dark Knight metal evil Batmen, the one that fused with the Flash and has control of the Speed Force, and it is going to be a chance for us to try out contrast Flesh Terror's red, because he is a very kind of Flesh Terror colour red. It's also going to be a chance though to try out some blending of contrast paints while they're wet, because it's a bit hard to describe, but he has like gills on his stomach, on his legs, and a little bit on his hands where there's just kind of like a little bit of orange streak just kind of shining through, again like the insides of gills. Not sure why, but we're going to try and achieve that by doing some Yandan yellow contrast while it's still damp, just very thinly in those bits. I'm not sure if it'll work. It should also taint it orange a little bit, but we'll see. Also, around his feet he's kind of got like, it looks like flames, but this Batman, without going into too much nerdy stuff, he has the Black Bat's speed power, which is like enervating bats that sap time out of people and turn them old. So we're going to add some Black Templar Black to that, to the tip, so it's kind of like Black Fire, but it's going to start his red and then turn to Black Fire. So we're going to do all that while it's damp, because that's the whole, it's going to blend best when it's damp. So that's how we're going to try and do this. It's going to basically be just one time lapse most likely, and then we'll do some touch-ups to the base and whatnot afterwards. But Flesh Terror Red is going to be the main contrast paint we're going to do first. Liberal spreading on all of it, then some Yandan yellow to try and do the creases in the armour, and then also some Black Templar to do the enervating black bats on the base. Will it work? Won't it work? Let's find out. So it's a little hard to pick out the details currently as the Flesh Terror's red is still drying, but it applies very nicely. Reds just seem to work really well in contrast, which is a stark comparison to how the blues seem to work, honestly. But it is still having to dry. Mixed in a little bit of the Yandan. It's the slightest little hint of the stripes on his hands and stomach and leg. I don't know how it'll look once it's fully dry. The black on the bottom there is probably easier to pick out. Apologise for it being a bit dull, incidentally. The hot weather left and now it's just constant storms. Scottish weather. So, once this is dried completely, there's some more detail to pick out. He's got like little flash things on the side of his head that need to be painted in whitish silver. Same with a kind of bat insignia on his stomach. The base as well. Might try and do something flashy with the base, pardon the pun, where I'll mix in some of the Flesh Terror red and Black Templar black around him to, I don't know, it's not going to look like lightning, I'm not that talented, so it'll just mostly look like a splotch, but it'll kind of look like he's streaked in, maybe. So we'll do a little time gap here and come back with the finished model after some drying time. So with some drying still to do on the base, here we have the finished Red Death. I think it turned out okay. The Flesh Terror's red, I think, is, as we were saying before, really good. The red contrast paints are just among the absolutely best for the way they apply, the thickness of them, the viscosity, and they're pretty good for blending. It might not be showing up that well on camera, but I feel like the orange, well, it was Yandan yellow, but it's where it needs to be to pick out the highlights. And that was a witch flesh, I think. What is that called that I used for the skin? It wasn't standard white. Or the emblem, I mean. Where is it? I've lost it. No, I can't find it. Oh yeah, there it is. Pallid witch flesh, rather than pure white, because it's a slightly off-white, his icon. As for the base, as I say, it's still got some drying to do, so... But I put some blood for the blood god in it as well to kind of look like he's turned people into mush by stealing their time. And in terms of another example of blending contrast paints while they're wet that I think illustrates it a bit better than the small parts on Red Death, I didn't do a video on this because I mostly use normal paints, but the Starfire model from the Teen Titans bat box, she's sitting on flame, and that is Blood Angels red, Iyanden yellow, and Griffhound orange. Well, red, orange, yellow as it goes up. And as you can see, I think that blended really well. Just applied them all while it was wet, kind of mixed them together in places, obviously the yellows towards the tip. And then I think it has a little bit of earth shade over the top as well, just to add a bit more shadow to certain areas. But that's another, I feel like that's probably a better example of mixing contrast paints while they're wet to blend them together better. This one, it's a bit more subtle with Red Death, but Flesh Tears Red was the main thing we were showing off today, and it's a really good contrast paint. Just in terms of like tier lists, red's at the top. Right now, white is probably at the bottom, honestly, but blue not far behind. Other colours we've seen consistently good, the browns and the Iyanden yellow I like, and the purple as well. Anyway, I'm not sure what we'll be painting next in our next painting video, so that noise you can hear is my dog scratching herself. You're embarrassing yourself on camera, Sora. Okay, she stopped. Go check out the other contrast videos if you're interested to see some other contrast paints being highlighted in particular, or just other models that you might have an interest in being painted. Thank you very much for watching this one though, and I will see you next time. Ta for now.